Hi, it's me, Olivia. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe to my channel for interesting stories and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the description. Thanks. As Cindy came in the door, she surveyed the room. It was a mess. About like my life, she thought as she dropped her purse on the coffee table strewn with speech evaluation sheets, research materials, books, and the big red Rembrandt family Bible placed in the middle of the table. Some papers had covered it as well. She took a moment to clear those papers away. Cindy collapsed on the couch and felt the tear dams begin to crumble. This was going to be a rough one, she thought. Before she could break down, though, she had to make a call. She carefully dialed a familiar San Francisco number and waited for the recording to end. "Luana, this is Cindy Main." Cindy paused for a moment to recompose herself. "I think we'd better meet this Saturday. The hard times, all those good times were leading up to have arrived. Give me a call." Hanging up the phone, the dam broke. Being read by strangers is rough. Being read by people you know and have grown to love is devastating. The day had started out great. Sunday mornings were special. Up early, get dressed, and out the door to church. At church, she found a seat for Sunday school next to an older lady who always seemed to ask her to sit nearby. The regular teacher was absent, but the pastor did a credible job of covering the lesson. However, he really wasn't a Bible teacher. Cindy missed teaching Bible studies. She thought maybe someday she might get a chance after she'd been at church a little longer. That was a foolish idea, Cindy thought bitterly as she reviewed the events of the day. After church, she hurried around from one person to another, chatting with everyone. It was one of the resources she had discovered within herself as a woman that she never had as a man to be sociable. She had started to blossom in that manner. A few children gathered around Cindy. "Hi, Cindy," one of them said. "I made this in the children's church." A green construction paper book was clenched tightly in a little hand. Cindy took the book carefully and opened it with a pressed flower on one page, a twig on another page, some leaves on the other pages, and the words, "God made everything good" on the cover. With the appropriate compliments, Cindy returned the book to its owner/creator just as Mother arrived profuse with apologies. "Don't worry," Cindy said. "Jackie and I were just talking about children's church." Actually, Cindy enjoyed talking to children, albeit with a sense of poignancy, knowing she could never have any of her own. But the kids of First Church were as friendly as their parents and actually sought out Cindy, as did some of the teens, which really surprised the 38-year-old. If you're going to have trouble passing, the teens are the worst. That afternoon, Cindy bought a gift for the baby shower that was coming up after the women's meeting on Monday night. Cindy had grown to look forward to these meetings. Talking woman to woman in group settings was uniquely satisfying, and the ladies were a great bunch anyway. She was a bit concerned going the first time. But she had been invited, and after being there a while it was obvious that everyone in the group accepted her. "At least that's what I thought," Cindy muttered as she threw the baby gift across the room. Evening service was fine. Good music. Good spirit. She chatted afterward with one of the ladies in the women's group. "Are you coming tomorrow night?" Nadine asked. "Sure. I won't miss it," Cindy answered. "Well, we sure like having you," Nadine said. It made Cindy feel good to be accepted as part of everything. A couple of months ago, things seemed difficult because of a confrontation with Brother Parsons, who came back and started witnessing to Cindy. She told him she was saved and filled with the Spirit. She thought that had satisfied him. She tried to tell herself he was just a harmless old gentleman who preached to everybody. It didn't mean he had read her. She wasn't Cindy convincing, but she decided to not run until necessary. In the meantime, she became very attached to the people of the church. They seemed to like her too. She was referred to by everyone in the feminine gender. She made friends with the pastor and associate pastors' wives. As she talked to Nadine, the pastor arrived. He shook hands, then said, "Cindy, I'd like to see you in my office after you finish here." Nadine said, "That's okay, I was just boring her with some old lady talk." "You aren't an old lady, and I'm not bored," Cindy responded as she got up on shaky legs. She had a pretty good idea what this was all about. The pastor's office was nice but not sumptuous. The pastor was an old-time Southern country Pentecostal preacher transplanted to California. He murdered the king's English, and Cindy thought he delighted just a little too much in preaching about hell, but he seemed to be a good man, a caring man, a good pastor, if not always a good preacher. The office reflected this. A scattering of books. An Afghan, probably crocheted by his wife over the back of his chair. Two simple chairs sat in front of a weathered and worn solid wood desk, too old to be chic and too new to be antique. The youth pastor joined them, sitting in the seat next to Cindy with the pastor behind the desk. As he did, Cindy remembered two other confrontations in church. At one church, she had attended only a few weeks when a woman called and asked if they could sit together. Cindy figured it was because some women's ministries got acquainted with the idea. So she did. After the service, the woman and a friend pulled Cindy aside at the back of the church to tell her what she was doing wrong. As Cindy left the church, the pastor caught up with her and told her he didn't want her to come back to church there. The other church hurt more. Cindy had been going about 4 months. After church, a lady caught up with her in the parking lot and said, "Are you male or female?" Cindy was a Christian in spite of the woman's opinion and, as a rule, avoided lying, so she responded, "I'm in transition." The woman then went on to talk about the health of the church and how allowing HS to attend could hurt it, etc. Cindy decided to quietly disappear. Coming to First Church was almost like coming home. The church was effusively friendly and she just seemed to fit. Which was odd because Cindy wasn't normally comfortable with the more emotional form of worship practiced. But somehow everything seemed right. Up until this moment in the pastor's office. Cindy knew enough about communication to know when to keep silent. This was one of those times. Let him lead off the conversation. He led with an amazingly calm attitude. "People often get nervous when they come to the pastor's office," he said. "I should have worn a longer skirt, then he wouldn't see my knees knocking," Cindy thought. "But I'm really not a bad person. I don't bite or anything. Cindy, I think you've found First Church to be very friendly. I think maybe you've found a home with us. And I want you to know that I think the Lord has something in store for you here. We want to help you find that. And nothing we say here means that we want you to leave." Cindy waited for the but. "But you will have to follow 2 guidelines. First, don't use the ladies' restroom." No problem there, she hadn't used it anyway. She wasn't really sure where it was. And secondly, the ladies' meetings are for ladies. Some of them could be uncomfortable if you are there. The second hit her like a fist in the stomach. She collapsed inside, being careful to keep the outside calm and placid. She smiled a submissive smile, hoping to keep her lip from trembling. Cindy nodded and said, "All right, I agree. Now, I want you to know that you don't have to leave. Some people on the board wanted me to ask you to leave, but I defended you. It's a trick of the enemy. We can't help you if you aren't here. But these guidelines will keep down some problems." Taking a deep breath, Cindy said, "I don't wish to cause problems. If my continuing here is a problem, then I'll—" "Don't even finish that statement," the pastor said. "I don't want to see you leave church." "Pastor, let me tell you this," Cindy said, gathering what little courage she had left. "In the words of the song, I've come too far to turn back now. I won't turn my back on Christ, God, my salvation, or church. I'll continue to go somewhere. I might make a better job of it next time." The youth pastor, who had been silent throughout, spoke up. "Cindy, the pastor doesn't want you to leave. He did defend you. And I know Pastor Randy or myself want you to leave." The pastor added, "And since we're the leadership, you don't have to leave." "Well, I just don't want to cause problems. This is one of those areas that are not covered in Scripture. I'm not a HS." To Cindy's surprise, the pastor didn't argue the fact. "No, I don't believe you are. This definitely falls under the category of working out your own salvation. This isn't the time to debate theology, though. One thing, though, I don't wish to offend my brethren with my meat. I will leave if my being here is an offense. I don't believe this is a sin, but being an offense would be. No, we love you, Cindy, and we want you to stay. Yes, theology is food for another session. Just follow those guidelines. The Lord has something for you." Gathering in a circle, the 3 prayed. 2 pastors, confused, confronted with a situation they didn't understand or condone, but trying to be helpful, and 1 TSL wondering what this really meant for her world. Only a few words into the prayer, all three began praying in the spirit, not paying attention to the words. As Cindy sat discouraged and feeling small, remembering the confrontation, the decisions crowded around her. Should she take them at their word and continue at the church, knowing that a few people were talking about her, knowing that the pastors thought she was probably doing something wrong, although she thought they didn't question her salvation, which was one thing in her favor, and would try to reform her? Well, if they can pray the prayer of faith to cure this, Cindy thought, praise God. But Cindy couldn't help believing that God created her as a TS for a purpose. Looking over her life in the past 6 months or so, she saw development in areas she didn't realize existed. She had learned a tolerance for anger. She had learned compassion for others and caring for the needs of other people. She had learned to feel as well as to think. Could she have learned these as a man? Perhaps, but she hadn't. Thinking about that prayer, Cindy remembered a peace descending, encompassing her heart. Sitting on the couch, Cindy simply closed her eyes and began to pray, Lord, you made me this way. I don't know why, but I trust that you have your reasons. But now I need wisdom. What should I do? Do I stay? Do I find another church? Does this cycle start over again? If I leave, how do I explain it to all those nice people who only know Cindy as a woman? But how do I stay knowing that the pastoral staff, the board, possibly their wives, know about my male side? And Lord, I guess I need a little comfort too. I need to know everything will be all right. Lord, there's pain here. A pain too deep to ignore. I need the balm of Gilead. Give me something to hold on to. Cindy knew God sometimes spoke in an audible voice, but her experience was usually something softer, something quieter, yet something just real. But this time, her ears actually registered the sound, although she could never remember the timbre, pitch, or resonance of that voice afterwards. The voice spoke just 8 words. Words Cindy already knew. Stand still and see the glory of the Lord. As the last words sounded in her ears, her mind, her heart, strength began to fill her up. And even joy returned. Drying her tears, she said, all right, Lord, it's time to stop running, I guess. But the pain will take time to heal. In her heart, the Lord had the last word. I never said it wouldn't, but remember, my wounds still bleed for you. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access. Thanks.